Hey, this is John Erickson, head of community at College Confidential, and I have with me Katie, who is a representative of UPchieve. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, John. I'm Katie Laird. I'm the head of programs at UPchieve, which means that me and my team are really focused on how we can impact students and how we can really maximize UPchieve's impact on students and their academic outcomes. Prior to UPchieve, I've been working in ed tech nonprofits for almost a decade. And before that, I started my career in the classroom.
In the classroom, meaning you were a teacher
I
in
was a teacher.
college?
Yep. I taught ESL for 1 year after college.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
My wife was going down that path. She's a Spanish major. She ended up being a nurse, but you never know when
Yeah.
what you'll get. So you said this isn't the first nonprofit that you've been a part of. Is that because you've been excited about service and helping others, or is that just sort of something you fell into?
Yeah, I've always felt really passionate about education specifically. So that started like as far back as I can remember. I've loved working with kids and I also loved learning. And so those two things kind of came together to point me to this education path. And then when I decided to be more in the ed tech nonprofit world instead of the classroom, it was like just what you're talking about, really an interest in service, an interest in impact, and how I could individually like maximize my impact on a greater number of students. So from that standpoint, the nonprofit and the technology pieces kind of came together to help that. And then like you mentioned about your wife, a little bit of like serendipity and randomness and being in the right place at the right time.
Absolutely. I think we don't give ourselves enough credit for just being in the right place, and that can be a skill, I think.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
so what makes UpChieve different than other nonprofits or ed tech organizations that you've been in?
Yeah, I think one of the most unique things that I find about UpChieve is our focus on a specific population, which is low income high school and middle school students, and using that focus to spread our impact. So, to give you a little bit more context, UpChieve provides on-demand online tutoring and college counseling specifically to low-income high school and middle school students across the U.S. We're really the only nonprofit that I know about that does this. So there are lots of nonprofits, like excellent local nonprofits that provide tutoring specifically to low income students on a smaller scale. But I think that our model being designed specifically for scale makes us really unique.
Yeah, I honestly can't think of any others. Although, like you said, there's plenty of local things. So you might have, tutoring that, even an individual might offer tutoring,
Yeah.
but not at any sort of scale. You can only tutor so many kids before you run out of time in the day.
Yeah.
Um, so, how does the technology assist in that mission? What's the technology angle for this?
Yeah. So what our tech does, I think, kind of the the most unique power of our technology is connecting one population. So that's our low income middle and high school students who need help with another population that is potential volunteer tutors. So
Hmm.
one thing that's really unique about UpChieve is our volunteer model is really flexible. So to be a volunteer tutor or counselor on UpChieve, you need to pass our training. We have training that's live on our platform and certification. You need to pass, we do some background checks to make sure, you are who you say you are and all of that safety stuff. but otherwise there's no commitment. So you can tutor when you want to, when you're available. It fits in a busy schedule. It works really well for professionals, busy professionals, for caretakers, for retirees,
Mm.
college students. So for anyone who might not be able to say, like, I really care about giving back to kids. I'm really passionate about math, whatever it is, whatever their entry point is. But I might not be able to show up to a tutoring appointment 4 days a week at 3 p.m. We are able to give them the chance to tap into all of this untapped volunteer energy and volunteer time. And so, yeah, to kind of loop back to what you're asking, I think that's like the major power in our technology is tapping into this untapped resource of unused volunteer time and connecting it to the people who really need it.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm starting to put the pieces together. I was thinking in college, I volunteered to do some tutoring, and it involved driving across town, and it wasn't a particularly good time for me. And I think it was a pretty terrible time for the kids because of, just when is the right time for us to go, and I didn't have a car, and so I relied on someone else, and it was commitment, and yeah, I can totally see how, like, whatever my desire was, I dropped out of that program pretty quick because it was inconvenient. And if instead after class I could have just logged in, and do you do video calls? Is that how it works mostly?
It's not video, it's all via chat and in our virtual classrooms. So students and coaches connect just over chat, like typed chat, and then either a virtual whiteboard or a document editor, depending on what they're working on.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be even more perfect because then you don't, like, you roll out of bed, you're like, oh, look, there's someone who needs some help on this topic, and I can help them out. That sounds really like a useful. I'm probably misrepresenting it in some ways, but like the idea
No,
of
actually,
being
you
able
hit the nail on the head. I mean,
okay.
it's a huge issue in tutoring. Like you may have heard just over the past few years since COVID, tutoring has become this like huge hope for catching kids up from the disparate learning that happened during school shutdowns. And one of the biggest issues that they're seeing is both attendance from the student side, so getting those students to show up, and also commitment and attendance from the coach side. So I do think that is something that we do a good job at solving.
Yeah. So from the student perspective, like who qualifies as a nonprofit? Obviously, you don't open it up to everybody. So what's your criteria? How do you manage that side of the organization?
Yeah, great question. So we are, as I said, it's low income high school and middle school students. So 6th grade through 12th graders. You have to be in the US. And then to check if you're low income, we use a couple of proxies. So we'll ask students their school, what school they attend. And if their school is Title I or has the same population of low income students as a Title I school, then they're automatically eligible for UPchieve. We also ask them their zip code. And if their zip code is low income, then they're automatically eligible for UPchieve. And then beyond that, we do have an appeals process if you don't attend a low income high school or middle school or live in the low income zip code, but your family is low income. We give a chance to ask more questions and dig in there.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I know there are definitely neighborhoods that would have been considered low income in the past, but over the last few years, people have moved in, and so that's a complicated thing. What sort of services do you offer? I mean, tutoring. What is that? What is that like? Do you have specific topics, or is it kind of all over the map?
Yeah, we are now offering basically, close to every core subject for high school for tutoring. So that means any math class that you are taking, really 6th through 12th grade, we cover. So algebra 1, algebra 2, all the way up through calculus. Also English, we offer help with reading, we offer help with essays, science and social studies. And then in addition, we also offer college counseling support. So students can come to us if they need help with their college essays, planning for college, building a college list, working on their applications, questions about financial aid. And then finally, we also offer prep for SATs and ACTs.
Oh, that's great. How long has UPchieve been in operation?
Yeah, so UPchieve was founded in 2016 by our founder, Allie Murray. She started off doing it part-time while working her finance job with support only from volunteers. And then she quit her job and really focused and hired full-time staff in 2019. So a lot of times we'll map that real launch to 2019.
Just before the pandemic. So
Yeah.
how has that impacted your operations?
Yeah, definitely transformed the trajectory of UPchieve. So it all of a sudden UPchieve was even more
Mm,
useful than we were even in 2019. So both for students and for volunteers, you had many, many more students looking for help online. I think there is a comfort that was also built during the pandemic with connecting online with a tutor or teacher that helped on UPchieve's trajectory. And then from the volunteer side, all of these people at home with a lot more time on their hands and not a lot of ways to give back. So we also saw a huge boom in interest in volunteering with us during the pandemic. From a little bit of, the bleaker side, like a lot of kids just fell behind. So we
hmm
feel a lot more kids need tutoring, they need more tutoring. And so our services are just like even more needed now than they were back in 2019.
Yeah. Oh, I have fifth graders, and when we went to back to school night, that the teacher said, "This is the first class that feels like they've started to recover from the pandemic, because in the past they've had wide range of issues, from like not even knowing how to operate in a physical classroom, like how do you raise your
Yeah.
hand, like really basic things, to just having missed an entire year, or even more of instruction, because they didn't get it, and they didn't get the help they needed.
Yeah, 100%. No, even that, like you're saying, like the classroom management, just classroom behavior stuff, all that's a muscle, and kids definitely lost working it out for quite a while. So, but
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that that's how the teacher felt. That's always good that we may be at the light at the end of the tunnel phase here.
Yeah, he says he's gone back to enjoying his job after
Oh,
several years of
good.
really not, because of, I think it was hard for everybody.
Yeah.
So after, with a couple of years under your belt, what's the impact been? Have you been able to measure that, or see some successes from the program so far?
Yeah, definitely. So we've already reached more than 40,000 students. Um, and we recently matched our 120,000th tutoring session. So um, that's huge, just the volume that we've already been able to reach for students. As far as impact, we also have some really promising results on early impact. So we care a lot about making sure that what we do is effective and research based. And so last year we did our first randomized control trial.
Mm,
Uh, so for those not familiar, that's really like the gold standard of education studies. And what we looked at was, did doing more sessions on UPchieve improve student performance on the STAR math exam? So that's a really commonly taken math exam for, specifically, we looked at 9th and 10th graders. And we also did some surveys to see how UPchieve improved their motivation, their confidence, and their engagement in school. And we saw really, really good results. So after 9 sessions on UPchieve, which usually translates, it's about a half hour a session. So, not that much time. We saw students score 9 percentile points higher on the math exam than students who did fewer sessions. For anybody who's sort of steeped in the research, that is equivalent to 0.23 standard deviations. So it's a pretty meaningful difference. And if you look at it in terms of months of learning, that's actually 8 months of math learning.
Yeah, that's very
Yeah.
impressive.
Yeah, we were so excited to see the results. I'll caveat it that it's a small study. So we had under 100 students in the sample
Sure.
size, and we hope to do more in the future. But that as an early indication of our success, that is really, really promising.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely nice to have numbers, and especially if you're able to do sort of a scientific study to compare those two, different groups. That's fantastic.
Yeah, we've done a lot of, less formal sort of looking into how our students self-report as well. And we also see great results there. So I think 97% of students who have done 10 or more sessions say that UPchieve improved their grades. For college admissions, we did do an informal survey asking students who did more than 9 sessions if they were attending a 4-year college, and we found that they were 3 times as likely to enroll in a 4-year college as the average low-income student. Again, I'll caveat that that's not formal research. That's not like the RCT that we did, but still really promising to see that our students do look like they're getting into college at a higher rate than the low-income peers that aren't accessing UPchieve. And then just like on a personal note, really our favorite indication in general of our impact is hearing from our students. We get hundreds of notes and feedback, and just really sweet, thoughtful indications from the students that we serve that we are impacting their lives and helping them feel more confident and feel more motivated. And so that's usually, for me personally, that's kind of the best indication.
Yeah, and I would imagine for your volunteers, it's like the statistics are great. It's good to know that you're doing the right thing, but also like it's the personal connections. The reason that you would do it is to see someone feel more confident and feel more motivated and be in a better place in their educational process, journey.
Yeah, no question. We definitely hear that from our volunteers a lot.
Do you I mean, this is a little bit of a sort of seems like a matching thing. Do you have a lot of capacity when it comes to you're trying to fill slots with your volunteers, or do you have more of the limitation of the volunteers are like, oh, we need more people to help, to step up and help?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually have a lot of volunteers. So we have more than 18,000 tutors on our platform, and we are ready, like at a moment's notice, to serve thousands more students than we serve now. So really where we're looking to grow is for our students. Of course, like, I explained, we have this double-sided marketplace, so we always need to be thinking about both.
Sure.
But we do have a lot of capacity to reach even more students, and we hope to do that this school year.
Yeah. For for parents of students or students themselves, what do you do to make sure that the interactions are healthy, and you don't end up with a situation where a volunteer is doing something they really shouldn't.
Yeah, great question. And when we, as you can imagine, we get this one a lot. So first we vet our volunteers. So we collect their information and we make sure that they are who they say they are. We run them through the National Sex Offenders Registry, all those sort of safety precautions up front to make sure our volunteers are people that you would be happy to see your child connected with online. We have some technical safety measures built right into the platform. So for example, you physically cannot send back and forth a phone number, a social media handle, an email. So these are things that
You can't take it off the platform and away from.
yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
exactly. Can't take communication off the platform. And then we have staff members that hand review every session that's flagged either from a student or a volunteer. So both can report or review a session and tell us how it went. And if there's a low session or if there's any indication that something went wrong in those sessions, we have staff review it and make sure that everything is safe and secure and up to snuff in that session. And then also make sure that the volunteer is somebody that we want to keep representing UPchieve.
Yeah, that's super helpful to know. I think, as you said, people have become more comfortable with online interactions, but there's still there's still problems out there, and it sounds like you're doing all the right things. So maybe we can take a giant step back and especially for your the population that you serve, what is the college admission process like, and how are things going, and how have things changed, improved, or gotten worse? Is it maybe?
Yeah, I mean, at the highest level, probably the biggest thing that people like us and the students that we served are concerned about this year specifically is the Supreme Court decision on affirmative action. So, this will be the first admission cycle where that goes into effect. And we are waiting to see what we assume will be the really negative impacts on our students from that decision. We can see historically in states like California that have made decisions like this in the past, that it just will result in lower admittance rates for the students that we serve. For context, 81% of the students we serve are students of color. So we're anticipating that to just be pretty devastating, and doing what we can to have students be prepared. Other things at the high level, unaffordability of college is not getting better. It's actually continuing to get worse. So that's something that our students and we are, of course, concerned about. And then as far as, things we can do about it, one thing that persists is also this information gap. So students from low income backgrounds might not know that actually some of the most expensive private colleges are some of the places where they might qualify for the most support. So they might be actually hurting their own chances by not applying to these reach schools because they're assuming that they're out of reach financially for them. So just, that's one area that we think our coaches and that individual support can really help, is knowing what you might be able to access and being able to, build your college list with that kind of armed with that kind of knowledge of what is the real affordability for me as an individual versus what does the college cost?
Right. We see this all the time where someone will look at the sticker price, so to speak, and say, oh, I can't afford that. And of course you can't. I mean, it's very expensive if you paid the sticker price. But how many
Yes.
people pay the sticker price? There are ways of getting discounts and scholarships and loans and things that reduce the financial impact for people. That's really useful. It's good that you're able to like specifically reach the people who need to know that the most. Like I kind of know it, and it doesn't make
Right.
any difference to me because I'm not going to be in that low income at this point in my life. And so, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it is
College
interesting
admissions.
that we know.
Yeah. No, college admissions is interesting because it's one of those like kind of pivotal transition moments in life where the right information at the right time can genuinely change trajectories. So we see that as a huge opportunity for us that, you know, unlike in tutoring where it has to build and you have to understand this to understand this to slowly get better at math or whatever it is, there are moments where if you just have one key piece of information, it can change your whole life. So um yeah, that's something that we really hope to have a big impact on.
Oh, that's fantastic. Um, so for our listeners on College Confidential, you've probably seen the ads on the side, advertising UPchieve. And so just to let you know that this is a partnership between us, and UPchieve isn't having to spend a bunch of money to create these ads. We're not making life harder for you all. And then, is there anything else, any other way that people, like perhaps if you want to volunteer, you might be able to connect with UPchieve?
Yeah, first I'll say we're so grateful to College Confidential. Like I mentioned, one of the big things we want to do this year is reach even more students. And so having exposure to the College Confidential audience has been great. And we are excited to see more and more College Confidential students come to UPchieve and get the help that they need, whether that is, you know, they need help revising their college essay, which we see a ton of, or help prepping for a math test, doing their English homework, whatever it is that they need one-on-one help with. So we're super excited about that. Students who want to see if they're eligible can follow those links if they see us on College Confidential, or just go to UPchieve.org and click sign up, and they can check their eligibility there. I would encourage kids that might not even consider themselves low income to check their eligibility. We do serve over 50% of students in the US are eligible. So it's not always just what you might think of as students that self-identify as low income as well. For volunteers, you can do the same thing. Go to upchieve.org and click on volunteer, and you'll see much more information about the volunteer opportunity. And you can sign up right there. It takes only like, I think, an hour and a half to get certified and go through everything you need to do to get started. And then, like I said, it's super flexible. So no upfront commitment of time or when you'll be available, but you can tutor as much or as little as you want once you show us that you understand the subject really well and understand how to tutor.
Yeah, perfect. Great. Well, this has been a interesting conversation for me, and hopefully for our audience as well. Any last words before we say goodbye?
Um, Let me think. Is there anything you really wanted to share that I missed? Yeah, I don't think so. Just thanks again, John. And I hope to see more students taking advantage of tutoring and college counseling on UPchieve.
Well, great. It's wonderful to talk to you.
Likewise.